the reason why it works for Lydia is because she's like the weird girl. She is showing up however she wants to show up, and that's what's connecting. That's what connected for Yvie when she was on her season, right?
That's the secret
Everyone
to the
likes
show.
That. Everyone
That's the secret
that.
to the show. It's the people who come in and they're like, my catchphrase is going to be ga or whatever. It's like, that's not how catchphrase work. Like, say what's on your mind, and that authenticity is what people will love, and that authenticity is what RuPaul will steal.
I should have worn the neutrals. Everyone's giving neutral vibes.
We really should coordinate. We never coordinate. We just show up.
I literally not Mary Kate and Ashley.
Girl, I just woke up in this
Charmed.
and went to sleep in this, so I don't know.
It does look comfortable, not gonna lie to you.
It is, and it smells disgusting.
Okay, is it true that drag queens stink?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like 100% true. That's why I was like so butthurt on my season when Raja called me smelly in a confessional. I was like, bitch, how are you going to make this seem like a me issue? They Febreze the whole workroom every day when we walk through that bitch like, uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, Eureka had that controversy.
It was wild, whatever. She was just angry. I was angry. But how dare she spill everybody's tea and make it seem like it's just me? Because, you know, we are all smelly bitches. That is the thing, is drag queens either smell like two things, like just pure hell or pure hell and cheap Britney Spears perfume.
Well, and that's the thing. I remember you being called smelly, but then like fast forward to like this past recent season where everyone was gagged when like Arietti made like, you know, pointed out Anya Nerve's bad breath situation. And then everyone was kind of like, oh my God, that was so mean. And I feel like with you, it wasn't really giving that. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I can see that she's smelly.
Because she had a medical condition. Yvie just only bathes and doesn't shower.
You know? And also, it was a big deal because Arietti did what Raja should have. I think people skipped over the part where Arietti was like, from one smelly bitch to another smelly bitch. She was like, don't worry, sister, we're smelly and your bad breath fucking stinks. I hope you die.
Yeah,
you
she did it to her face versus in a confessional where you saw it later.
It's kind of hard to defend Arietti in that moment, though, because Arietti was clearly trying to stab. Like, that was meant to hurt. It wasn't a read. Yeah. It was like, it wasn't like playful shade. It was pretty nasty.
No, Arietti, she has been an example of what being a train wreck on Drag Race really, truly looks like. And it sucks because that's your first season. That's the way that people are going to remember you for the end of time. And just like whatever said on television for Anya, especially with the bad breath, that's going to be brought up for her. And so it's really that thing that it's like, even if you're on TV this one time, you're kind of cemented. That's literally a part of your legacy, unfortunately, moving forward. I don't know how Arietti can bounce back from it.
Well, and the Drag Race fandom is so unforgiving. Like, I'm just like we're now like, because we're adjacent to Yvie Oddly, that was a fucking mistake. It's like,
y'all needed to pick a better winner.
Leave me alone. Leave
me
alone.
Picked a better queen, girl. Y'all should have picked a better queen. Honestly, if Brooklyn Heights had won this podcast spot.
Well, that would have been like, we would have had to leave space for a white person, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Well, Yvie, I was going to say, like, do you feel like the fandom is wild? Like, I feel like we're back at it again with all this ginger stuff.
Okay, see, that's what's crazy is I've been heavily invested in the ginger stuff all weekend, and it's like this two-part problem. And one part of the problem is the fans can be absolutely evil, and like not even realize that they're doing evil things to another human being. And then a couple years later, they'll turn back around and be like, remember when the fans were so evil to Ginger or Raja or Silky or Yvie or like all the shit I've ever heard or seen?
Yeah.
People love to be nice in retrospect after a girl's gotten a chance to come back onto the franchise. But the thing with Ginger is this is like her third or fourth time there. And so part of the reason the fans are being so evil, and this is the other half of it, is production keeps making some of the wackiest, like, obviously very, very biased choices, which they are completely in their right to do. But you have to sell it to the people. You have to sell it to the people. You have to sell it to the people.
Yeah. I just wonder, especially I've always wondered this about the queens that like return like multiple, like maybe 2+ times. What's the point for them at that stage in their career? Like, are they wanting to be reintroduced to a new generation of Drag Race fans? Or because there's so much money that goes into building a package that is just kind of wild to me of like, okay, if you don't win, what are you really getting from it? And I think for Ginger, she's been one of those ones that have been like, you know, robbed, quote unquote. And I think that's the reason why we're seeing so much kind of anger around her, and people are just thinking she's the favorite and she's automatically going to win, like the Alyssa Edwards and, you know, so many others who have come, the Trixie Mattels.
Well, and to unpack for maybe the less queer listeners, is like, you know, there was Ginger keeps winning. We have this new All-Stars format. Ginger keeps winning. And Ginger is a great drag queen. Like, I know Ginger. Ginger's a fellow Orlando girl. And that's fine and good. But when the choices being made by production are so obvious, it's now taking it from like, let's celebrate Ginger. She should be the one everyone's rooting for. A big girl, or at least a formerly big girl. A big girl in this season. Not anymore. That's a whole conversation.
Yeah, we're about to cut off a whole lot of weight in the finale.
Oh, let me see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to talk about people's bodies, but I mean, her and I have talked about this a little bit in the DMs, you know, but it's just to say
work.
Yeah.
That was the sound of somebody seeing Ginger's before and after. It's like the same shock people used to get when they'd see drag queens get out of drag. Like, oh!
No, I mean, she's fabulous regardless.
And if she looked like this on the season, maybe the fandom wouldn't have been so nasty. And I think that's part of the problem, too. It's always the most marginalized girls that get the most crap from the fandom. And it's the most, you know, twink to drag queen pipeline girls that are beloved.
I want to agree with that on one half, because it's like not something you can't argue against it. I'm so sorry. Look at the number of fat winners we've had.
Right. I mean, what is it? Is it Lawrence Chaney?
It's Lawrence Chaney.
It's Lawrence Chaney, girl, and that's not even our country.
Lawrence Chaney.
We are the fattest fucking country ever, and we cannot crown a fat person, girl. So on one hand, that's true. But on the other hand, I think what people are really frustrated with is seeing something that I know I've bitched about in the past, but like seeing the judges whose job is to objectively like choose what they see as excellence in drag, seeing them run to these like old classic standards. And I want to say that Ginger is undoubtedly like a phenomenal drag queen. Obviously is doing very well in the competition, but a part of that is, I think Denali said it best at Roscoe's. Part of that is due to the fact that it is RuPaul's Drag Race, and so the more RuPaul is invested in any drag artist, the more things kind of just lean in their favor the whole way. And I know people would love to hear or would love to say that I'm bitching about favoritism when I was a favorite and blah, 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 blah. No, girl. Let me clear this right now, because I competed on a season with favorites twice. I walked into a workroom with a living meme in Miss Vanjie. It was so hard every week having a new guest judge automatically know and love one of us. I walked into that workroom with RuPaul, who had personally tried to get Brooklyn on before. In the first walkthrough, she told Brooklyn, "Oh, we've been trying to get you here for a second." That is favoritism. That's a sort of bias. Girl, I only won one challenge on each of the seasons I did. There's no favoritism here. Favoritism is when somebody who has the power is kind of blind to see what other people have to offer because of the backstory that they have with anyone else. And it's funny because the fans do the exact same thing, like you were saying, with skinny little white bitches who can cackety-cack death splat. And I'm sorry, but Denali lost that lip sync.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we got to talk about, too, because, like, look, in that specific instance, she was given all the moves, but not given the song, there was nothing in the face. Like, and look, like, it's so easy to judge from a side, you know what I mean? And then you have to go and do it. And everyone loves to be a backseat, Drag Race watcher. Unfortunately, this is our job to have these conversations, but I hate it because it's like, you get up there and try to do it.
I think the reason why I get a little frustrated around kind of the fandom specifically, there's a ton of reasons, from the racism to their own favoritism. But I think the thing that I feel like people forget, and something that, because I'm a lover of competition shows, there's strategy when you're going into this show. Mm-hmm. We saw it on this past season where all the queens kind of broke the fourth wall and talked about what works, what doesn't work, and how the game has kind of evolved. And as people who watch the show and going on the show, how you implement in your own personal strategy what you're going to do to get RuPaul's attention. That's what the show is about. I'm sorry, there is a judges table, but it does not matter what they are actually saying, because at the end of the day, when RuPaul says silence, it's OV. It's over. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times, a lot of the fans, they work themselves up over nothing, because guess what, sister? This show is going to probably continue just like Grey's Anatomy in their 72 years. And it's going to be 7,000 Drag Race
94-year-old RuPaul.
Period. And I think we have to, it's really difficult when you think about, this layers of favoritism. And maybe Ginger Minj is being favorited, but why else would she come back on this show if she wasn't going to kind of experience and have a conversation with producers being like, what are y'all going to do to make this worthwhile for me?
Right, girl. And I think ultimately what's frustrating and what needs to be met somewhere is producers need to find a way to also get the viewpoints of the fans. And I'm not saying the fans should vote for whoever America's, because that would be terrible. We would never have a person of color again. There would never be anybody who weighs over 90 pounds. For
sure. I mean, we see it with when it's like Team Anya.
Well, that is how they do it at the end. That's why they film you all winning the award. People don't get, this is a TV show. So if it was really a meritocracy where the best person wins, then why are they filming alternate endings? Because they want to see how the fans respond. And it is a strategy, Ryan. There are archetypes that you will get cast into. You start to see these recurring characters, the Alexis Michelle type, you fall into these archetypes where if you're not careful, you will be the villain. Or and if you are the villain, you actually can't win. Yvie was very close to being so far villainized at one point that she wouldn't have been able to win. That is a thing where even if she had the best lip sync, and then you look at someone like Sasha Velour. I managed Sasha Velour, and she had this great moment. You say, why do people come back? She told me she would never, ever do another Drag Race thing again in her life. Here she is hosting the Drag Race World Tour because two things. One, you need money. And two, I remember Aja crying to me after her old manager was like, you're going to be washed up soon. Don't you see what's happening? This is never going to stop. You won't matter in a couple of seasons because there'll be another 25 girls, 30 girls, 60 girls. And she was like, wow. So that's why she's back. But she's taking that opportunity. She's seizing that opportunity. You look at a Bosco. You even look at Butthole Collins, who is came back 6 weeks after competing or something like that.
Well, she's new. She she's the one that it makes sense for her to kind of do a quick turnaround. I think it was a similar situation when Monet decided to come back to All Stars right after her season, right? It makes sense. That's a platform.
But don't you think there's risk if you're not actually at that next level? For example, Lydia had to put all of her looks together in 7 days. They shut down production. And
there's a risk. But I also think if you play it right and you actually, show up to that risk and you actually perform and you actually make more of a space of being yourself and not trying to necessarily be anyone else, I think it works. The reason why it works for Lydia is because she's the weird girl. She is showing up however she wants to show up, and that's what's connecting. That's what connected for Yvie when she was on her season, right?
That's the secret
Everyone
to the
likes
show.
That. Everyone likes that.
That's the secret to the show. It's the people who come in and they're like, my catchphrase is going to be got to ga or whatever. It's that's not how catchphrase works. Say what's on your mind, and that authenticity is what people will love, and that authenticity is what RuPaul will steal.
I rewatched that argument with you and Vanjie on your season, and it's so interesting because when you watch it back, I'm like, this whole thing was really wild because why are they arguing over his He's like, it didn't really make sense, but I also think that was something that I felt like your season was the last season that really felt like everyone on the cast wasn't afraid to like go there. I wasn't afraid to like really kind of just simply be, and it wasn't like manufactured in the ways that it's manufactured.
Weren't thinking about the cameras. It's the same reason like why Housewives and all these other shows have started to fail. It's because people go in with an agenda to be famous and to make a lot of money. And reality TV at its heyday was like stupid people saying stupid shit on TV.
Oh, well, icons.
Honestly, that kind of explains the Silky dynamic of everything. Like, I know I talked about favoritism a little. She was RuPaul's favorite. If we were living in a world where favoritism automatically won you a crown, Silky would have gotten that crown because she just had the best connection with RuPaul. And what really ended up fucking her was the fact that she felt like she was America's favorite. She kept producing that and saying it. So the girls, all of us, clearly, like by episode 1, we're already over her bullshit. But RuPaul was in love with her for a whole season. So they had to find a way to tell a story about somebody that RuPaul likes for an entire season.
But the gag is, people really didn't like Silky because they dragged her when she picked up Miley Cyrus and was excited about that.
But that's what I'm saying. From like episode 1, from literally the jump, all the things that Silky perceived as going to like rocket her into superstardom, and all the things that RuPaul perceived about Silky that was going to rocket her into stardom
actually hurt her.
Yeah, especially because she was very, very well aware. I remember a lot of the interviews that I was getting asked during season 11 airing and even afterwards was, do you think Silky was putting it on? And it was always a really hard question because the answer is 100% yes, but also that was still authentically what she was and what she was. She recognized the challenge before her, and she did kind of exactly what Ginger Minj is doing, which is just be yourself, especially if RuPaul likes it. And if everybody else hates it, then you're going to hear about it in a year. And hopefully in another 5 years, people will start to treat you like a human again.
Well, and also everybody else ain't giving, her, the winner of this show $200,000. You know what I mean? Like, the fans are not. I mean, later down, you want to build a fandom enough, but Ginger Minj just had her fandom already kind of.
She's an icon.
And putting into her work. So it's like, it's not like she's needing anyone else.
And we also have to remember the judges, when you think of like Michelle, Ross, some of these judges are producers as well. And and as they've stepped into that producer role, which was not always the case, and that's why they're winning the Emmys now and the things, you see them producing in real time in a way that just isn't authentic to what's actually happening behind the scenes. And I think, I'm like, watch the dailies, guys. Like, you're missing the narrative. And so they're trying to make it's like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what's happening with Ginger.
Exactly what it is. Ginger is fetch. And it's not that fetch isn't cool and slay and one of the best words that's ever been made up. It's that, bitch, we've already been trying to make fetch happen. You've already tried it a number of times. And so people are pissed. They're like, stop saying that word at me.
It's what I think of when I watch like Love Island. I'm always going to have a moment where I bring it up. It's the really big thing that's kind of been missing from Love Island this year is like producers cutting too much out, where it's like you're cutting out moments that are actually should be there to help shape the story so it makes sense to the viewer watching it. And a lot of times I think when you're watching the lip sync of Denali and Ginger, you're like, why is RuPaul laughing so much when Ginger didn't really do much? But I think there might be something there where it's like, oh, producers are trying to like match the amount of, however long an episode is supposed to be. And like, they're taking out valuable things that could really like be helpful to help shape whatever the larger picture is. But that's what storytelling is. That's what being a producer is. And that's where it comes into, okay, we have to pick and choose who we want our story to be around this season. And if they chose Ginger Minj over Denali, then that's just kind of simply what it is for this bracket until we move on into where everybody is coming.
They're probably both going to move forward. That's the gag of the century. It's just like with the half points in the last bracket where they gave a little half point away just to make sure their girls were just that much tipped ahead. We see what's happening, but at the end of the day, if you give, you're probably going to make it through. or at least find some love. And some of these people are like really upset that certain queens aren't getting more love. And I was like, okay, but I watched what they did and they looked beautiful, but they really weren't giving. And that's okay.
And it's crazy. Can I also just admit, not to side pivot before we really get into the show, I have such a crush to Diabetti out of drag.
I was just flirting with Diabetti in the
Diabetti
DMs.
is so fine. Oh my God. Just putting that out there.
See, and I have a crush on Diabetti in drag.
No, I mean, I have a crush on both of them, but I think when like I see them in their confessions, I'd be like, damn, Diabetti kind of fine for a white boy, you know?
And like Diabetti is finding herself. Like really, like this season is a great season for Diabetti. You know, this new look. That's someone who took all the critiques, whether they agreed or not, and said, I'm going to come back as the thing that can help me win this competition so I can make my $200,000 and then I can make my Trixie Mattel money one day. Like, you got to have a vision because at the end of the day, we're poor Black queers and these ones dress up in dresses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's paying our bills. And so I'm like, hustle, play your game, but realize it is a game.
It's a game.
It is a game. It is a game. But my final thing I want to say on this, because I thought it in the shower this morning, is I really would like production, and I think they've done a fantastic job at this, but I'd like them to pay attention to the culture that they've created a little bit more. RuPaul has this infamous saying about, if they ain't paying your bills, pay those bitches no mind. And I think there's this tendency of people to shit on queens who have come out of the franchise and have any critique at all for the show. That's very, how dare you bite the hand that feeds you. I think I would like every single person on this planet to remember that we are the ones who paid RuPaul's bills. So pay these bitches some mind.
Yeah, and also, like,
we got a whole show coming out.
Shower, Yvie? The breaking news in that profound statement was her starting by saying she showers.
Honestly, it really was. It really was.
Okay, so let's wrap this up, y'all. You know, we got a lot to get into, and I'm very, very excited about our next guest. Right, Ben?
Yes, I'm so excited. I got to sit down with the one and only Tess Holliday. You know her as a model, an activist, just a real trailblazer. And our conversation, I'm not going to lie, it was really good. We talked about everything from the state of the body positivity movement to kind of the state of her life and her new book, Take Up Space, y'all, that really, really, really is an inspiring read. So we will be getting into all of it. I'm gonna tell you, it's like a high-key, unforgettable interview, or at least it was for me. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Tess Holliday, welcome to HighKey.
Hi, thank you for having me, boo.
It's so nice. It's been like a year since I've seen you, at least like December 2023, I think. So
yeah,
we have a lot to catch up on. The world has certainly changed quite a bit since then. But to start, I saw, first of all, happy Pride. I saw you were at Pride with some of your chosen family.
I was.
And it was kind of, it's funny, you actually just tweeted this, I think, or, you know, threaded this.
Are you like, going to say what I literally just posted right now?
And it was already on my notes before you posted. It's so wild. But like, I feel like a lot of people don't know you're queer. And I was talking about doing this interview and they were like, I thought you were going to do, you know, really focus on the first interviews being queer folks. I was like, what are you talking about? Tess Holliday is queer. You came out as pansexual in 2019.
2018.
2018. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like because you were in a relationship with someone who was perceived male that your queerness was kind of erased?
Yeah. And it was so frustrating because my ex was, you know, and I was always very public that they were queer, non-binary. And now they've, you know, I mean, even though we're not in relationship in any capacity, they are, you know, trans non-binary. And, but that's who I was married to. And all of my relationships since then, except for the exception of one little thing, have been with queer folks. I was actually talking about this because I was at a dinner last night with a brand and I sat beside a very popular queer makeup artist and they were saying, oh yeah, I'm cashing those Pride checks. And I was like, slay, not me. I don't really get to do Pride campaigns. And they were like, oh, I didn't know you were queer. And I'm just like, it's so frustrating because I feel like I talk about it a lot. I always show up for our community. I always have. And I think it's because I've kept my dating life so private, but it's like, what do you have to do? Do I have to like post me just like full on making out with somebody for them?
I don't know. Maybe we need like a Tila Tequila style TV show or something. You remember that show?
I do. Minus the weird, like segue into the Christianity that she went down.
The wild downfall. She seems to not be doing well, but like, hello, queer representation early on.
Thank you. And it's just like, I don't want to, like, there's so many bigger fights for the queer community than be like, oh, it's high femme erasure. But I just feel like as a high femme, people don't give me the respect. I literally started wearing these are my natural nails. Even though people would say they're too long, I'm like, what do I have to do? I stopped getting acrylics. Help.
I also wonder, like, you grew up in Mississippi. So, like, for me, like, growing up in the South, queer identity, when I finally claimed it, was so important to me because I was like, this was a risk to come out and to come out in this way. You came out a little bit later. You were already very public. And so to not feel that risk kind of reciprocated, I can imagine would be tough. Do you feel like you always knew you were queer, or do you feel like it really took until 2018 for you to figure it out?
Well, I knew, which is part of why I married my ex. I didn't care that they were queer. I was interested, in like what that would look like in our relationship. I had, experimented plenty prior to that. But I think that there is something very unique, unless you've grown up down south, that a lot of people don't understand. And you spend so long feeling so much shame and everyone around you telling you, you're going to go to hell, or you're going to, your life's going to be horrible if you are. And so, I think that there was definitely a lot of, what a lot of people I hear do, oh, it's a girl crush, or, oh, it's this. And, but I never really felt like I just liked girls. So I felt like it was really confusing, honestly, until I would say I moved to LA and I got, a huge circle of queer friends, and started my advocacy, that I really understood, because I didn't really know that there was anything outside of, bi, lesbian, gay. I didn't know about that entire world until, I lived in a bubble. So I think it took me kind of educating myself to later connect the pieces. But 2018 is when I just kind of couldn't hold it in anymore. And then my mom and the rest of the world found out at the same time because, oops, I forgot to tell her.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
She was pissed off. She wasn't happy because, it's one thing to have your daughter very vocal about things that, make a lot of people uncomfortable and puts kind of a target on her, but then adding that into it, I think, so Lance Bass and I are from the same small town in Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
And so I'll never forget, everyone loved Lance. And then when he came out as gay, I'll never forget, our town was kind of like, for a while, now they're proud, but for a while they were like, ooh, we kind of want to distance ourselves. And so I kind of felt a lot of my family, including my mom, they were proud of me adjacent, but I think adding the queerness in, it was just like, oh, great. It's more thing.
You're already the fat one. You're already this, and you had to throw another label onto it. Yeah. But you've always been so transparent about yourself and your identity and the good times and the bad times and the mistakes and the triumphs. And it's kind of what I really want to talk to you about is what I'm feeling on my heart, because you have been one of the loudest voices in the movement for body positivity, like celebrating bodies of all sizes and often being that body in spaces where like you were not meant to be. And we're really seeing this space begin to shrink, I think, literally and figuratively. And so I wanted to just start with a prompt, which is like, how do you feel the current state of body politic is, and how is that affecting your career as someone who built not just a livelihood, but a legacy in this space?
Well, thank you for that. It feels dystopian. It feels very difficult. I kind of went from being celebrated for being one of the first, visibly kind of fat, I would say like superstar, not to like name myself that, but I mean,
no, but for real,
and I mean, Beth Ditto came before me, and, we had like, all of obviously like Queen Latifah and Missy Elliott and all of the like, those icons. And then, then Lizzo and so many other people. And, I felt very fortunate to, I think, be a part of that group. And then, now that things have shifted, I hear now more than ever. And I actually almost did like a TikTok about this the other day, and I stopped myself because I don't really know what to say anymore. But people are like, thank you for existing. You're kind of one of the last visibly fat folks out there. And I always noticed that I was maybe the fattest person in any kind of room where they would have, influencers or models or artists, etc. Now I definitely am. And, it feels very isolating, and it almost feels like it's my first day of school all over again. And I'm waiting to be picked for a dodgeball, and I'm getting picked last. It feels like it was okay when everyone was okay with it and it was trendy and popular. And now that it's not okay, and it's seen as like, oh, well, you could just get a GLP-1. That's your solution. Why are you still fat? And it's like, have we just completely lost the plot altogether? So
yeah, what goes through your head when someone says that? Like, just why aren't you on a GLP-1?
Well, I get asked that 900 times a day. Yeah. I think it's, I don't really know. To be honest, I think I'm still processing it because, I have had many thoughts surrounding it. I myself have thought, about taking it, especially the pressure. And I think people, so many times they would ask me, in LA, like, what's it like? You must have so much pressure to lose weight and do this. I never really felt pressure until now.
Culturally, it's changed so much where it's now become, and like, look, I think like I have to address an elephant in the room, which is like the last time that I saw you, I was double the size that I am today. Right? It was December 2023, and we were both the fattest people in the room. Period. Yeah. There's a picture of us on, on the carpet, like, and we were the fattest people in the room.
And the baddest.
And the baddest. And we're still both the baddest, but I am no longer the fattest. And that has been a really interesting shift for me. And I wanted to
what's that been like for you?
Well, because, I helped start a lot of the reemergence of body positivity when I took on Abercrombie & Fitch and worked with so many plus size fashion spaces. And it's been really hellish because I felt really scared to exist, because I don't know about you, but like for a while when celebrities, I saw them losing weight, I felt like this personal attack. Mm-hmm. I felt like, how dare you? Like, whether it's Sam Smith or Lizzo or any of these people, it's like, you were the only one. You had to carry the torch. You had to represent for us. And now I'm on this other side where I've heard a lot of that. And I feel guilty because I'm like, wait, but isn't body neutrality like that I get to make my own choices over my body or whatever? So it's been really a double-edged sword. And I guess I wonder for you, the question being like, for people who are changing their bodies, like, what does accountability look like? And how do you do that without, or can you do that without destroying the movement for fat liberation?
Well, not me getting emotional right now. Not me tearing up when you're talking about
the cancers.
I know. I'm like, damn. To be honest, Ben, I don't know.
Yeah. Because we can't win. That's like what was so hard for me is like, I felt no matter what I do, you hate me when I'm fat, and then you hate me when I'm thin, and then you hate me when I'm, in the midst of an eating disorder, and I actually cannot win because you just hate me. And so I see someone like you who still has to exist in the world in a body that is harder to be perceived in. And then I feel guilty as someone like me who's like, I'm struggling. I was on a billboard in Times Square and I was like, I didn't recognize myself, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
That's not me. Because I worked so long to love myself in the body I was in. And so I guess you say you don't have an answer, and I think that is an answer. But what do you think about the current conversation? Lizzo, for example, said the state of body positivity is changing. And she's like, let's be body neutral. And to me, the neutrality is almost an issue because we haven't earned neutrality yet. It's like being colorblind with race. How do you respond when you hear something like that?
I mean, she's always had the body neutrality stance. I think, maybe it was body positivity for a little bit. And this is no Lizzo shade. I love her. But it very quickly, when people, plus size people, we even had Ashley Graham when she blew up. And this is no shade to Ashley. I love her too. But we have a lot of these celebrities that when they are plus size and their career is kind of built on being plus size and being, I think, body positive, the words attached to it. It was quite popular during that era, but I think the shift in what happened is that, they kind of realized, and this is their own personal journey and I can't speak for them, but I think that if I had to guess, they were probably both pressured to shift to a place of body neutrality because people are afraid of what actual body positivity looks like. And now it's kind of like a dirty term. Now people don't like to use it and people do like body neutrality. And I said something that blew up on Threads a couple weeks ago, something along the lines of, it's never been more radical to be fat than it is right now. And that my body is an act of defiance. And people are like, oh, I don't like that. I'm fat and, it was hurting my body and I lost weight. And that sounds like you're giving up or just all these attacks on me. And it's like, I'm not choosing to stay fat. I'm actually in the throes of still trying to navigate my disordered eating, which took a really ugly turn when I spoke about it publicly. And I think I've shared this with you.
Yeah,
I had quite a few moments where I regretted even saying anything. Yeah. But I'm so grateful I did. But do
you want to talk more about why you regretted those moments?
Yeah, we can for sure.
Because you came out and talked about you're in a large body, one of the largest high profile bodies there out there, and you talked about having a restrictive eating disorder, and everyone was like, "What are you talking about? You're fat."
Yeah,
and I remember we talked right after it happened, and when you share something like this that is so common, but no one's willing to talk about it, there's such a stigma put on you. And then you're almost re-traumatized in a way that then makes it well, should I even speak out about my disordered eating? Because it's just going to trigger it all over again.
Yeah, because now the comments on my page, maybe they went, the comments from people or the critique or, the media, maybe it's shifted from a place where I'm promoting obesity to, oh, aren't you the girl that claimed that she was anorexic? Or, you're giving us all a bad rap or whatever. And I'm like having that type of restrictive eating disorder is some trophy to be had by only people that check that box. Out of everything in the world that I could make up and be, and say and do, why in the world would I be, a nearly 400-pound human and tell the entire world that I have a hard time feeding myself? And it was, and even my team was like, why didn't you tell us this, before you shared it? And I know that. And in my head, I'm like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And obviously it was a big deal.
You created permission for so many other people, and that matters. But I wonder, like, and I kind of, maybe this is just me projecting my own personal experience, but when you build your brand around your personal story, people feel such an ownership over it that sometimes you almost lose yourself in it. And so looking way back to like F Your Beauty Standards, the, campaign you started for self-love against these societal beauty norms that just didn't represent the vast majority, and still don't, the vast majority of people. Do you have regrets, or can you think of moments in your career where you're like, I shouldn't have done that, or I regret doing that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even like selling my F Your Beauty Standards shirt, like there's still, if you look it up, people are like, you're a scammer. You stole our shirts and didn't ship them out. And I'm like, yes, I did. But I also like got so big so quickly. I wasn't prepared for, the amount of orders. I didn't have a distribution center. It was a shit show. And like I sorted it, but people still attached that to me. I also famously said, things that I shouldn't have said, in 2014 in an interview that I definitely put my foot in my mouth. And I think that I always have a lot of work to do around, I think a lot of my privilege as a white cis woman and the, how loaded my words can be. And I had to do a lot of work around that. And, I am the queen of putting my foot in my mouth. I would be lying if I sat here and was like, no, I haven't, I'm not ashamed, or I'm not whatever, not ashamed. I'm not ashamed anymore because it happened. And I've had to kind of forgive myself because there was a lot of grief and pain around the kind of those two moments in my career and life, because had I had known better I would have done better, and I didn't. And I know better now, and I do better now. But, I had to learn that not everyone is owed forgiveness, especially me. And that, you only get one chance, right, to make a first impression. And unfortunately, someone's first impression of me is always going to be maybe one of my darkest moments, and maybe a moment I'm not proud of. But I can't, I let that shame, I think, destroy parts of me. And I had to just push through it and pick myself up and do the best that I could do, so that moving forward in my career, I wasn't harming people. I was doing what I felt like I was meant to do. And that was to help others and to use my platform and voice, to, I guess, boost others that normally, society kind of turns their shoulder at.
Yeah. And you said something kind of profound. Not everyone deserves forgiveness. And just saying that's true. Does everyone deserve grace? Because I wonder how we look at, coming back from cancellation. And I've had a number of friends be canceled, and there's obviously the discourse on, can you be canceled? And it's like, well, probably not if you're a cis white man with enough money. But I also think we kind of fundamentally lack grace. You were a personality before everyone was on TikTok every second, sharing every moment of their life. You really helped blaze a trail for the creator economy as we know it today, so that you can have a platform where you can sell shirts that you never even have to touch, that are drop shipped and done for you and all of the things. Is there a specific moment in your career where you feel like you really weren't given the grace you actually deserved, whether you fucked up or not?
So I think definitely my F Your Beauty Standards t-shirt debacle, it was well intended. And I think a lot of people don't understand, I was working in a dentist office. I had just started modeling. I was still working at the dentist office when when I kind of like quote blew up. And I was selling these shirts as a way to make money. And also as a victim of domestic violence, I was like, this would be a good way to give back and raise some money. And so, when I started navigating, selling them, I wasn't expecting to get like, thousands of orders overnight. So it was like me and my older son, who was like Bowie's age. No, he was younger than Bowie, and my best friend Jolene, and like whoever would come over helping, fulfill these orders and like writing out labels. And like, I was so ill equipped and ill prepared. And where I really fumbled was, I had set a portion of the proceeds. Well, once people started getting frustrated about their shirts not arriving on time, or like some people, their orders were missing because like it wasn't a professional setup, and that was my bad. I just didn't know what I was getting myself into. I think once I kind of went down that slippery slope, I should have, hired a distribution center, which I did once I realized that there was an issue.
Or that was even a thing you could do. Exactly.
And, so people were mad that I didn't donate as much as they felt like I should have. But when I donated money at the time, I had no money in my account. And I'll never forget, I donated almost everything that I had. And I think that my life looked very glamorous, and sometimes still does. And people don't always understand that doesn't equal money. The glamour doesn't come with the money. And this isn't me trying to make anybody feel bad for me. I fucked up. I made a mistake. I own it. And I would never want to like harm anyone, especially DV survivors like myself. But I think that it's very easy for folks to toss someone away when they already show up othered in so many ways because they didn't want to like you to begin with.
Well, and that's the key. It's like it feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so it gets to a point where sometimes people feel like, well, should I even be doing this good work? Should I even still be trying? Or should I just sell out and make my coin? You're a mother to 2 children.
Yeah.
And so often, like when you're in the public space, you have to say the right thing the right way and make sure you're not offending anyone and make sure everyone knows that I understand that I'm not the worst off. But like what I hear is like, you're a human who's gone through a lot in a marginalized body, in a marginalized life. They don't teach you in Mississippi how to get along in Los Angeles.
No.
And so I look at someone like you who's had all these successes. You've been on the covers of magazines. You've lived people's dreams, or at least what they perceive them to be. And like, I want to know what you want your future to look like and what you think it will look like given the conditions we're in.
I think that my future moving forward is going to be bright. I'm extremely proud to be putting out, my kids' book later this summer. I'm excited for what that means. I'm excited just for life. I'm like definitely, dating and, very queer, enjoying my life. My mom flies in today and I get to like spend time with her. And
Aww.
I've like, in the last few years, I've like reconnected with my family and we just pretend that they're, aligned with how I feel politically. But I've had to also learn you have to kind of meet people where they're at. And as long as I'm speaking true to my boundaries, which I know is like going off from what we were talking about, but it's still kind of like, it's still very much in the era that we're in with like, how do you survive in such a dystopian place with people that, voted to harm those that you love? How do you love them too? A lot of communication. So I think I say all that to say that I've had a lot that has prepared me to get to the moment that I'm in now. And I think for a long time, I allowed everyone's narrative to get in my head, especially the last 2 years. And the narrative that played over in my head the last 2 years was I was a failure. I was washed up. I was a loser. Nobody cared. That I already had my moment and I fucked it up by being, you know, in an abusive relationship and not leaving sooner. And obviously that's toxic because I know that, like, I'm saying, like, this is the narratives I was playing in my head. I don't actually believe that I could have left sooner. I'm lucky to have left at all. But, you know, there's all these things that I think I would be lying if I said that I didn't allow to get in my head and fuck me up. But I have thankfully moved to such a good place now where I am so hopeful for my future and for the future of my queer community, our queer community. And I know that it's scary right now more than ever. And it probably seems weird me saying that I am hopeful, but it's been very validating to see a lot of people, and frustrating as fuck, coming around and being like, oh, maybe you guys were right. I'm like, listen to the gays. You know, we might be loud, but like, we know what the fuck we're talking about.
We've been telling you. But you know, sometimes you need that vindication. Sometimes you have to have that I told you so moment.
Yes.
But then we come together with grace and say, yeah, I was right. But now let's move forward together in our rightness. And you brought up your book, and I'm really glad you brought it up because I wanted to take some time to talk about it. It's called Take Up Space, y'all. And I really love it because it feels like both a call to arms and like a love letter. Yeah. Like a soft place to land. It's really this gift to young people who are navigating all these complicated times. And what I think you do so well in is you really create this space, both workbook, both book, for folks to talk about all these things that you've just been unpacking, really to share that wisdom. And so I guess you're a mother of two. For young people who are facing this swirl of pressures right now, what are some anchors that you really hope this book gives them?
I think that, you know, I wanted to kind of show them, and I know it's very much in the title, but I want them to know that, like, now more than ever, take up space, because everyone's starting to look the same and act the same and be the same. And that is not the point of life. The point of life is that we are all so vastly different, and our differences are actually what make the world and our communities and our families special and unique and different. Like, I would fucking hate if, I know I'm promoting a kids book and I fucking hate, but whatever, moms cuss. I would hate if everyone acted and, you know, was the same way. How am I going to learn and grow? How am I going to, you know, show my kids how to exist in the world? 'Cause, like, I'm so sorry. What culture do I have from being Caucasian that I can be proud of sharing with them? You know, I'm like, it's bleak. We need other cultures and other people and other communities to make all of us who we are, like full, wonderful individuals. And I think that starts with our youth. And I am really grateful for this kind of generation that's come up. And I'm grateful for, you know, the Gen Xers and, God, what are the kids now? I don't even know. See, I sound old. What are the kids now?
What do they call them kids these days?
What do they call them? I don't remember. But I am grateful for them because they're calling people out. They're calling people on their bullshit. Sometimes maybe loudly and wrongly, but been there, done that. I'm guilty too. And I want the book to empower people. I want it to make them feel less alone. I want it to be something that they can throw in their bag and it gets messed up and like the pages are bent. That's why it's a paperback. It's consumable. I want them to just go through it and dive in it and circle and write in it and do all the things and pass it along and, like, you know, have moments where you're like, wow, I didn't know that about me, or maybe being able to see their friends differently. And or maybe even understanding why their parents annoy the crap out of them. And maybe they do stuff that way. But regardless of all that stuff, just showing up and being yourself and knowing that there are so many different ways to exist in the world and none of them are bad unless you're an asshole.
Ooh, okay, preach on that. I think that is all the serious conversation we need to have. But before we go, we do like to end our conversations with a little simple question, a little more culture forward. We want to know what you are high key loving or high key hating or high key obsessed with. What is your high key moment of the moment?
I'm loving a no makeup moment because it's way too fucking hot. I'm not into it. I'm not into the heat. I'm loving Beyonce more than ever, I think, and my country roots, but not in the MAGA,
a reclamation
MAGA pipeline. Yes. I'm also loving, like, my 40th is coming up. So I've been like, July 5th. So I've been like thinking like, what do I want to wear? How do I want to do it? And I've decided I'm wearing a red, white, and blue dress because it's Beyonce's America. And I'm going to celebrate. So I've kind of been loving that because I love how our country's been coming together. So I've been, high key obsessed with seeing so much community and so many people getting out and speaking up about what is going on. So I've been loving protesting.
You're my fellow Cancerian baby, little crybaby, little feeling loving activist. And I'm so thankful for your friendship. I'm so thankful for your presence. And I'm so thankful for this conversation.
Likewise. And I'm so proud of you. Larger bodied, little skinty body. We love it all because it's you at the end of the day and it's how you show up. And I just have to say that. I love that you are taking up space and you're being yourself. And I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Take up space, y'all.
Ben, what the fuck? How great of an interview that was. I'm very, very proud of you. Second interview of HighKey.
Yes.
And it was so interesting. I've always known about Tess through social, of course, and to watch her career and see the good, the bad, and all the things in between. But to hear her reflect and be in this space right now, in this moment, and you being able to connect with her in a very raw and vulnerable place, kudos to you both for just that moment. It was really, really beautiful.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you. It at the end, she said, like, wow, I felt so safe. Like I some of these things I've never talked about before. And I was like, that's what I want HighKey to be a space for. Like, just as much as we laugh and kiki, but also it's like, let's come here and have conversations we're not normally having or that we're afraid to have. And I think she really went there. And so I thank her for that. And I thank you all for listening. What were your favorite parts?
Ooh, okay. Well, y'all definitely digested quite a bit. I feel like what really struck me the hardest was the conversation that y'all had about kind of her missteps in the past, the ways that she's like reclaiming the fact that she's a human and makes mistakes, and that like a part of that is acknowledging it and acknowledging that she could have done better, but also realizing that like she can't be held to the standard. She can't hold the shame and guilt for that one fucked up thing forever.
Couple of fucked up things. Look,
okay. I actually I'm not that familiar with the drama because I'd seen Tess Holliday on like Cosmo magazine. That was my knowledge of Tess Holliday. Yeah. So I was it like really bad because the way she handled it made me want to like.
Well, I did. Okay, so I did a little digging too because I was a little nosy and I was curious. And so obviously there's multiple things she talked about. I think what I really appreciated in the conversation where she talked about a moment in 2014 where she did an interview and she put her foot in her mouth and said something that was what I look back on. There was a Daily Mail article that I found. Apparently, she was saying this happened behind the scenes while she was walking with the crew to the shoot where they were in the streets of New York, and a Black man catcalled her. And she said in passing that it's always normally like Black men that catcall her. She never gets the same amount of like kind of attention from white men. And she said that Black men love her, which of course that entered and however it was relayed in the article is kind of what dragged it even more. And so she had to apologize via Facebook, which is a time because this is 2014. And she put out a statement saying in a recent interview from The Guardian that has upset some people, and I thought I needed to address it publicly to try and clear the air. Firstly, I apologize for any hurt that my flippant comments has caused. I'll try to provide some context, which hopefully will change the way in which it is being viewed. But I have to also accept that being followed and quoted is something new for me, and I'm going to occasionally say or do things that make people unhappy. For that, I'm sorry. Your opinions are important to me.
I mean, I think of that comment, and I'm like, I mean, a lot of Black men like big girls. And like, that was her lived experience of being like, that's what I think when I think of that comment. Did she, she apologized for it. It's not my thing to call her out for. But it's interesting. We did this interview right after we had finished our last episode, and we were talking about Doja Cat, and we were talking about that scenario. And I think it actually was illuminating for me. Like, I come into this show like with strongly held opinions because that's my job, but like also the open-mindedness to like really think more nuance with more nuance. And it made me think like, wow, these people get canceled and shut down. It's often the most marginalized people no one teaches you how to be famous. No one teaches you how to not say stupid stuff. Or, you see athletes like blow all their money and things like that because there is no guidebook to this. And when you're coming from a space, she's from Mississippi, and I'm sure, I know for a fact that she was raised by people who had racial prejudice, and to unlearn those things and to unpack those things is real, and to do it in front of the world is hard. And so I have to give her some grace for that.
And that's actually, you led perfectly into the question that I appreciated the most, was you asking about grace and who is deserving of grace. And I like you just mentioned, I think everyone should be deserving of grace, but I do think at some point, some people are not deserving of grace. And I'm not saying she is not deserving of grace. I think where she's at this time, you can tell she has really reflected and has understood her position as the privilege that she holds, not just because she exists in the margins, but she also is a cis white woman. And she knows that privilege now. And I think that she's experienced enough of life. And unfortunately, she had to learn the hard way in a very public moment to like really learn that lesson. But I thought about kind of grace and really what it means at this point of culture where it doesn't necessarily seem like there isn't any grace in any parts of this world anymore. I think we've all gotten used to the echo chambers of like social media and just like to who has the hottest take, who can, drag the person the best, who can read the person the best, and us amplify that versus kind of really understand the nuances of someone's life. And yeah, it's not to give excuses for anyone because you have to learn from those mistakes. And I love that she mentioned, even if my intentions were good, that doesn't mean anything. And I think that was a really important thing when you are talking about accountability and what that means moving forward.
And can I ask you, Ryan, because, she had said not everyone deserves forgiveness. And so I asked, does everyone deserve grace? Yeah. And you're saying not everyone deserves grace. Does everyone deserve redemption? Because accountability, redemption is what comes after accountability. And this is where the cancel culture conversation comes up, where it's like, if some people are irredeemable, then what are we doing? I don't know. Does everyone deserve redemption?
Is cancel culture even a real thing? Like, I don't believe it's a real thing unless, like, I can't really think of one person that has like been successfully canceled, meaning their livelihoods have been kind of diminished, like they are like completely out of the public zeitgeist, and like I don't know what that looks like, because they may go out and leave for about a year or two and some change, but then they come right back with a rebrand and like say they've went to some mental health facility and they've become like all good and dainty again. So it's like redemption is a different thing for me because I think with everything, no matter if you've done the work as far as accountability and understanding, it does not mean that everyone is going to forgive you. It does not mean that you are going to like get back to your rightful place that you once were in. I'm sorry. That's a consequence of your action. Sure. And I think a lot of people forget about that. They think, oh, well, I've apologized. I've done all the things, but okay, what do I get for that? And that's where I know you didn't do it for the right reasons. You didn't learn this lesson for the right reason because you were expecting to get right back into the seat of power or privilege that you were already existing in instead of realizing that actually a consequence of my action, unfortunately, I have to learn this lesson, but that may mean I may never have the access that I had at one point.
Girl, I think that's so hot because over the weekend I listened to the Ezra Klein show. He specifically had Sarah McBride on.
Oh, I've been waiting to talk about this.
I cried so hard that entire conversation because I think she is probably one of the best leaders in how liberal thinking people should be treating our relationships with grace, with redemption. I believe so, because ultimately I believe that not everyone is redeemable, but it is a far smaller percentage of people who are completely irredeemable, whose minds you're never going to change, who are never going to open their hearts, than the percentage of people who don't align with you on everything, who ultimately you push out. And talking about cancel culture, like, it doesn't exist in the ways that we thought it would as a mechanism when we first all started realizing our power in holding people accountable. It doesn't get rid of them. It doesn't like close everything off. But what it does do is ultimately, if we're not allowing people the grace to come back and find a pathway on their own, if you're forever canceled, if everybody's going to hate you for that one thing you did, you're pushing somebody further to a train of thought, and ultimately right now a political party, but a train of thought that exists around, yeah, are you sick of being told that you're not right or you're not pure? That's un-American. I think there needs to be some balance, because we need to hold people accountable. And like Ryan said, those people need to realize that you're not going to have the same things that you had before. But I feel like if we amplify every misstep that every person takes, we're just playing the boy who cried wolves with our own enemies.
Yeah, I think for the Sarah McBride interview of it all, I think I appreciated a lot of what she said, right? But then there is a part of me, and this is where it can get a little complicated. White liberalism is a really interesting thing, because I think a lot what she was saying is actually a really prime example of white liberalism. And to be honest, a lot of times that has not really worked for us. And I think oftentimes a lot of the ways that she talked about in that interview around like using the civil rights movement as an example of like what it means to like be strategic is like the bare minimum of white people and understanding what that movement actually was. Yeah. And so for me, it was like I was able to like hear a lot what she was saying in that moment, but I also understood a lot of the kind of the backlash that she received from a lot of trans community, especially trans community of color, Black folks, people of color, all the things, of like why that's a little problematic, and trying to kind of not place the blame, but trying to like tell folks, well, we got to be a little bit smarter.
You're blaming the victim.
Yeah, you're blaming them in a way, and I don't think she meant it in that way. And I don't think it. It depends on how you are really viewing her altogether. Like, do you even like her? Is she a representative of you?
I met Sarah McBride years ago at the White House. She was a friend, my friend Jacob Tobiah. She was a close friend of Jacob Tobiah, and she assimilated. Even the way she speaks, I always found it personally, and this is no shade, Sarah, I love you, robotic and inauthentic and very much like playing politician. And to play politician is to assimilate and let's play both sides. But this is life and death. It's no longer life and death for her because she's a US Congresswoman. But for my trans partner, it is. But what I also think about is like, this weekend we were up in Vermont for my partner's grandmother's celebration of life. And there were all these people who knew my partner. Yeah, it was great to be in the mountains, love nature, hello. But it was wild to see all these people who knew my partner pre-transition. And not all of them were great with pronouns. And not all of them were great with a lot of things. But they were accepting and they loved her. And so instead of being like, well, fuck you, don't use he pronouns, even though you haven't known me since I was 10. It was like a gentle correction. Or maybe there wasn't even a correction because they were talking about how they were accepting her. And that actually was a great starting point. Not everyone's going to have the right language. And I think this is what we did as woke people is we policed language and we stopped allowing, and this is where the intention thing gets tricky too. We stopped allowing intention to mean anything. Positive intention and negative actions don't cancel each other out, but it does build a foundation of understanding where that is why redemption is possible because you are trying. I didn't used to believe redemption was something that everyone deserved. But the thing is, if they don't, then what's the alternative?
It's a yes and for me because I think it's a beautiful thing that you're trying. But what does it mean when the person that is actively trying still behind a voting curtain votes for the president that we currently have? What does that mean? Because are you actually trying when you're not thinking of like the full picture? You're only thinking of a pronouns change. And they're like, oh, but I still voted for this man. Yeah, you may regret it now because of the actions, but guess what? It's too late.
But is it too late? But that's the thing. So should we, more than half of America voted for Donald Trump. So if it's too late, then we'll never win again. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's too late in the sense of like, you can't take that back. And I hope you're actively like learning right now. But a lot of people are not. A lot of times people just stop at, well, I'm gonna try to get your pronouns right, and that's fine. They stop there. There's no actual movement past that. And I think just because people are challenging you to be more and be better and to create a society that is better, it doesn't just stop at one place. It continues to evolve, but people have to be open to that. And I think when you start to realize that people at the end of the day are only like, well, I feel like at my core, I'm a good person and I don't think I deserve this critique or anything, I'm going to continue to just shut you out and then maybe possibly swing the other way. That's a problem. That's not really actually like doing anything that's helping both sides. It's like, how much are you expecting, folks who exist in these margins, trans folks specifically, to continue to like try to push and make space for themselves when the other side is not actively trying to help them build that space for them? They're actually just like, well, I'm doing the bare minimum here. I'm trying. What? How do we challenge people to do more?
I'm excited for our conversation we're going to have with Tourmaline, who just did the Marsha P. Johnson autobiography, because I've been reading that. It's a great book. And it's making me think about that, where it's like, these are people who, to Tess's point, took up space. And it always is incumbent on us to take up space and to demand to be seen and to demand to be respected. And I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think it's right, but I don't think it's going to change. And so if it doesn't change, and it is incumbent on us to make that change, like, I'm going to do it, I guess.
I want to bring this back to another point that was brought up in your conversation with Tess, which was how she was sharing parts of herself with society that did not fit their perceptions of what she's allowed to be or do or say. So I want to acknowledge actually everything that you said, Ryan. I do think as marginalized people, it is so frustrating to have to constantly fight to take up space, fight to exist. But it's also very difficult because the best visibility you can get, the best human connection relation you can make is by making this huge impact and sharing parts of yourself with the world. And unfortunately, the more you do that, the more the world builds up a picture about who you are and how you should be representing for the people that you represent. And to bring this back to Tess Holliday, it was like hearing about her sharing with the world that she she had disordered eating, and people being like, you can't be anorexic if you're fat, or like, this is ridiculous, this is a joke. And it's very difficult because, you know, we all have these perceptions about what makes somebody something and how they need to represent for a community, when I think we should all remember that before anybody learned how to be a brand or a representative, you just learned how to share yourself. That's usually what rockets people into this sort of celebrity, is just being like, oh yeah, by the way, I have bendy bones. Like that really hit hard for me in the conversation. Specifically because I have shared parts of myself.
Yeah, and so have I. I mean, I got started. The reason that I do what I do is because I started a very viral campaign against the clothing company Abercrombie & Fitch, because they had said they didn't want plus-size people and people of color wearing their clothing. Well, I was a fat kid who didn't belong in those clothes, and I knew how harmful that rhetoric was, because that was the rhetoric that had caused me to be anorexic, and to be anorexic in a body that people didn't see as representing the body of an anorexic person. And the problem was, the more I began to lose weight, the more people began to celebrate me, and it really fed into this disordered eating and eating disorder that almost took my life. And so I remember when Tess, you know, opened up about her eating disorder, and her calling me and talking about what it was like to do that. And I remember feeling for her, because it is such a double-edged sword. Now I'm a person who, I spent most of my life in a large body. We talked about being the fattest people in the room. We were, you know, we really were. And now I weigh less than half of what I did when I saw her last. And that's been tough. And I really appreciated the conversation we had, where she literally, I was like, how do I stay accountable? And she literally said, I don't know. And that was a very telling answer to me.
That was actually a really powerful moment, because I, you know, during that, I reflected on my own personal journey, right? And not even really, the fact that she even had the language to say that she had an eating disorder, when I, in real time, in a therapy session at one moment, I remember talking about my relationship to food, and like the ways that I would try to detox, or try to like, just for my mental, try to like get the food out of my system. And it wasn't necessarily through like throwing up, or the classic whatever moments that you would think that are connected to eating disorders. And my therapist was like, that actually sounds like disordered eating. And I was like, what? No. Like, that doesn't, girl, no, I know what disordered eating was. That was on Degrassi, when Emma was stuffing fries in her pocket instead of eating them. I was not Emma. But it actually changed so much for me, because it really made me think about how my relationship to food was and is very like connected to emotions, and connected to a wanting a feeling that is connected to wanting to be empty, or like emptiness in some ways. And hearing her talk about that, especially as a fat person, and especially because ED isn't necessarily tied to fat bodies at all publicly, it was very, it brought back these memories around my own personal experiences with that, which is always very tricky, especially as now I feel like I am on a specific journey, and I am doing it. I feel like all the times I've tried to lose weight, it was always because of me thinking that, it was going to be the key to me finding a person, being in a romantic or sexual relationship. It was the key to, you know, all these things that in my brain. And I feel like now I'm in this moment where I'm like, I'm doing something for me, if I like, just to see what happens. And if my body becomes the body that whatever it tends to be, I'm going to let my body just simply exist. And I have never really just let my body simply exist in my own brain. I think I publicly, it seems like I'm like this fat, fierce person, you know, who dresses cute and knows all these things. But sometimes there's days where I wake up and I don't feel that way. And I do look at myself in the mirror, and I do have to kind of actively tell myself, and even while I'm working out, like, why are you doing this? Like, are you doing this to just try to get rid of these underlying insecurities that you can work through therapy? Or are you actually doing this for yourself? And it's a constant cycle. And that relationship with your body is just so, so important and I appreciate that even for her, it still feels like a journey that never will stop. It's just ongoing always.
Ryan, we've talked a little bit about this, and I think you are in a really good headspace about it. But the last thing I kind of want to say about the interview is I've been just thinking more and more about her book, Take Up Space, Y'all. And I'm thinking about this story when I first moved to New York. It was like my second day in the city, and I was 17 years old, 18 years old. And I went to Grand Central Station because I wanted to see the clock. And I was super disappointed by it because it's really small. And I was like, what? This isn't like the movies. And so I'm walking out, and this unhoused woman just looks at me and said, "Take up space, boy." And I was like, excuse me? It was so wild. She just was like, why do you make yourself so small? You're not a small person. You have light behind you. Take up space, boy. And I remember I sat and I had this conversation with her, and I said, like, I asked her how she was doing. She started crying. She's like, no one's asked me how I was doing for years. And it was like she was like some angel that came down. And for all of these things we talk about, accountability, all these things, trans representation, all these things, the best thing that we can do to fight for ourselves is to be ourselves unapologetically, despite what other people might think about ourselves, to show up for ourselves, period, first and foremost. Because at the end of the day, this is our life. And we're not just here for ourselves. We have to, do good work and help others. But at the end of the day, like, if we just show up authentically, what we do is create permission for others to do it too. And I think that's something the three of us do so well, is there's no one way to be queer. There's no one way to be Black. There's no one way to be anything. And Tess's book is such a simple but important reminder to take up space, because it's more than just about being seen. It's about the permission that visibility creates for someone else. And the fact that when we realize that and we all start to take that permission to be ourselves, we'll create a better and safer world for ourselves to do it. And I just want to thank Tess for being here with us this week, and for being so vulnerable, and for sharing in that way. And I'll say this, any nasty comments, I'm coming for you. Say something nice about Tess, because she deserves it.
We're here to take up space, bitches. I'm going to double park for the rest of my life.
The crazy thing is, this is how you know I'm from the South. When Ben said that person was like, well, take up space, boy, my first reaction was to be like, she white or Black? I was like, I just need to know. A quick follow-up.
Wait, I need to know the context of that boy tacked on right there at the end.
It was a Black boy. Like my great grandmother used to give me. She was born to an enslaved woman, and she would give me that, boy, go get me a switch. It was that kind of love. It was that kind of love.
The only appropriate boy I'm looking for is from a Black grandmother. Period.
And it has to come with a switch.
Such a great conversation.
All right, when we get back, we'll get into our high key moments of the week.
All right, y'all, it's time for our favorite part of the show. What are you high key about? Let's dish. Who wants to start? Who's the highest key?
Oh, Ben, I feel like you got a good high key.
I actually changed my high key from what I told you it was going to be. I'm feeling high key American. I am American, and I'm proud to be voting today. It's today for me, not for when you're listening, for the next mayor of New York City. And we have this incredibly inspiring opportunity to elect a 33-year-old brown man to be the next mayor of our great city, the greatest city in the world. Zohan Mamdani, I'm going to say it right so I don't sound like Cuomo, is running as a Democratic Socialist to be the mayor of New York City. And polling is showing that because of ranked choice voting, if you don't rank Cuomo, and I hope you didn't, he has a real shot of winning. And for a while, I've been so turned off by politics because I'm just so sick of it. I know these people. I know what they actually stand for, and I know what they say they stand for. I know what they really believe, and I know what they believe when there's money in their pockets. And I'm just disgusted by the state of progressive politics. I feel like there is no one who is lighting a fire, and then enter this man. And you see for the first time young people caring about a mayoral election in this city. And it reminds me that, like, all it takes sometimes is one person to be the spark. And I think this man has the potential to be the spark that reminds people that progressive values are popular, that fighting for things we believe in is popular, that economic populism is popular, And so I'm like just high-key hopeful that we're going to have a new exciting mayor, because if he wins the Democratic, primaries, he most likely will become the mayor of New York because it's New York. But I'm also just hopeful about a wave of people being excited to come and be authentic again in politics and fight for what they actually believe in and not talk like a robot, but talk like a person, and put the middle class, the working class, the poor people first for once, because those are the people who make our country great. America is already great. And it's not because of anything to do with what's happening in DC. It's because of all the beautiful people. And so I'm really excited. And I that's what I'm high-key about this week.
Also, if you called yourself a Cuomo-sexual in 2020, this is your time to make up for it.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Lost Culturista girlies. Bowen Yang out there, Cuomo-sexual. All right. No redemption for you, right?
It rolls off the tongue. I'm sorry, it might be my tramp stamp.
Oh my God.
Yvie's just an everything sexual.
Don't tell anyone.
Is just sexual.
Well, I mean, I guess to take it for my high key, this is probably gonna be one of the only high keys
take it, girl.
I don't talk about sex. That's a lie, because I just finished Big Mouth and I'm so high-key about that show. That was such a beautiful...
So good.
Like, such a beautiful show altogether. Like, what a way to stick a landing about the end of something and talk about how it's the opening to something else.
I'm watching it, so I don't want to hear it. I'm literally watching it right now.
Okay. Well,
I don't want to hear how it
No spoilers, but everybody dies.
Well, but they've done a ton of episodes like that where they've all died when they've gotten.
Well, this show is supposed to stop like 4 times. Like they keep giving us the new last season. I'm like, are we gonna get a Downton Abbey style movie next? Like, I need more. I almost said something I can't say on the radio. I almost said I need more teenage sex.
We are not beating the groomer allegations today. Oh God.
No, because I've been like turning this show on just like as background noise, and then I found myself actually starting to pay attention, and I'm like, wait, this show is disgusting but so funny.
Well, and I think it does a really good job of humanizing a lot of the weird parts that we all grew out of.
Yeah.
Like, there's just been so many episodes that talk about little things that I was like, oh, I thought I was the only one who felt that way, or I thought I was the only one who learned this. And it actually is kind of strange for a cartoon to be doing, an adult cartoon to be doing a better job at exploring sex ed and the development of humanity, our relationships, than anything I got in a civics or sex ed class.
I mean, it's not, it didn't explore sex ed, but shout out to Steven Universe.
Oh,
because that is a therapy in a...
Or BoJack Horseman. I love adult animation that makes commentary, but like makes it accessible through this format that feels so nostalgic, but it's actually talking about something real. And like sex education, but not just that, but like also like the openness to have conversations, to say the words, to like think about if we're going to have kids, how we're going to talk about those things with our kids. That is a great show, and it's so sad that it's over.
I know, but I just have to be happy that it's over because I don't want them to come back with any corny spin-offs that miss the mark.
Well, I mean,
you didn't like Human Resources?
I liked Human Resources.
I liked it too.
I actually really liked it too, but it was obviously like spin-off tease. It was like, yes, this is great. How can we fit all these cute, quirky monsters? And I'm still about it, but Big Mouth is my
It's like The Office meets Monsters, Inc. It's a moment.
Yes, I was just thinking Monsters, Inc. What a great reference. Yes.
Wait, Ryan, what are you high-key about today?
Okay, so I have a couple of things that I'm high-key about. So my first thing, I'm going to start with Noah's Ark, the movie.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Noah's Ark is literally, when anyone asks me, like, representation on television, when's the first time you saw yourself, I always say it's Noah's Ark. Patrick Ian Polk, the director, the creator, is someone that has been literally, he's the godfather, the grandfather of Black queer kind of like cinema and like our stories when you really think about it. But Noah's Ark, the movie, is back after, such a long time. It's, I think it just started streaming on Paramount. And it's so, so good. So many of my wonderful friends are a part of it and also were a part of the creation of it. Shout out to Michael Chen, who was an incredible development exec on it at the time. And then, of course, some of my friends are a part of the soundtrack, the Freaky Boys, Victor Jackson.
Yeah.
So many really incredible Black queer artists. And just the beautiful moment that Patrick has been able to create with this show and this film, and then being able to kind of put other people on is just high key everything to me. My second moment is an artist that goes by the name of Cassandra Coleman. She is someone that literally I was on my balcony getting ready for an interview that we have coming up, and I was listening to their album, but she came on right after them. And she has this new song called Coming of Age. And she's been backed by Jack Antonoff and Bleachers, and she's a songwriter out of Tennessee, and she is just absolutely incredible. And I always love a folk pop song. Anything with an acoustic guitar, bitch, my pussy be purring. And so, speaking of sex ed. And so I really, really appreciate this song and just this beautiful moment. And I don't know. I want everyone to listen to it because I literally wrote her on Instagram and was just like, thank you for this song, because I just remember being a teenager, and at the time it was Paramore for me and listening to Hayley Williams. But I just remember being a teenager, sulking in my bed whenever anything went wrong and just having music as my soundtrack and being I'm the main character of my story right now. And this song, Coming of Age, is for sure that song. And she's just a next generation singer-songwriter to watch out for sure.
Oh, we love the songs that make you feel like you're in an indie movie and you have your own soundtrack, you're walking.
Yes.
Bleachers does that a lot. Jack does that with so many songs, but the old, Ingrid Michaelson and Sarah Bareilles and all these types of folksy women who just make great music. You gotta love it.
Yeah, and apparently she's going to do a couple of live shows coming up in the couple months in August at Lollapalooza and Outside Lands. So if you're around, you should check her out. I'm really a fan, and maybe I'm gonna DM her and just be like, "Girl, I would love to interview you."
Yeah,
that's my thing for this show. I want to be able to talk to those folks before they break out to really see where their head is, and then years later get reconnected and have that kind of full circle moment. So,
and then we can be remember when you came on our show and talked about how Black men always love you?
Oh my God, yes.
We're not just following culture, we're making culture.
Period. And that's who I'm high key about. Noah's Ark and Cassandra Coleman. Thanks for doing the work.
Yay. Okay, I think that's our show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want it to be another episode down. And then next week is the 4th of July, Independence Day.
As you just said, I'm American.
I'm high key about America. Fuck 4th of July.
Well, we don't know if Zeron's won yet. So you got to give me a couple of days to figure out what I really feel about it. But I think there's no one better to talk about America right now than with Tourmaline, who is an amazing artist and author of the new book, Marsha, The Joy and Defiance of Marsha P. Johnson. And we're going to have a very great conversation with her. I can't wait.
I'm obsessed. I've been listening to interviews that she's been doing in promotion of this book, and that brain of hers, insane. So otherworldly. And so I'm very, very excited to have her grace her show, y'all. This is going to be great. All of us.
I know. We're really going to have to bring our A games.
I know. But that's the show for this week. Y'all, I hope you have a wonderful fucking day. Please get out of here.
Yeah, stay messy, stay obsessed, and stay